The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Furthermore, the views, opinions, and insinuations made by the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the show, the organization, and the entirety of the university.
The University of Santo Tomas is a premier institution here in the Philippines when it comes to liberal arts education, as the Faculty of Arts and Letters was founded in 1896. It is the university's most diverse tertiary academic unit and home for 13 bachelor degree programs, including political science. And for all we know, this program is quite holistic as it focuses on 5 primary fields such as Philippine government and politics, comparative politics, political theory, public administration, and of course, international relations.
A beautiful good morning, afternoon, evening, or wherever you are, Spartans. Indeed, nagbabalik na naman kami ng aking partner for the 4th and sadly our last episode of our very first podcast, POLeisipan Career Path Podcast Series. Therefore, once again, to those who are listening right now, I hope that you have with you some snacks, coffee, or readings to highlight as you join and me tackle yet another interesting Career Path Podcast episode today.
So hello mga ka-Spartans and good day sa inyong lahat, and I hope that you are all ready for the last episode of POLeisipan Career Path Podcast Series, the one and only podcast made to converse and reach out to political science students or aspiring political science students. Kaya nagbabalik po muli, I am Ange, your go-to gal for all things vintage, and together again with me is no other than my handsome co-host, coming out tonight as Cary Grant, Jeho, the Cary Grant to my Hepburn, looking dashing as usual, and join us as we talk about political science, the career paths after POLSci, and why we have to love our course even more. Kaya grabe no partner, we have come so far.
Thank you again, partner, for that wonderful introduction. And I may have gotten a little bit formal today, but you know why not? Let's end our last episode with a bang. So, it's been a really wonderful journey, and syempre, you're looking beautiful as always. For the past 4 episodes, I mean, that's, yung mga nanonood dyan sa YouTube, won't you just agree? So, partner, gusto ko lang naman i-share. I can't imagine how far we've gone. No? Siguro, it's been a month since we've started recording our very first episode. And look where we are now, 4 episodes after we've tackled a lot of topics. And I think our knowledge has somehow widened, our view on certain things about political science has even progressed. And parang kahapon lang nag-anticipate tayo for the first episode, and now nasa final episode na tayo. Don't you agree, partner?
I agree, partner. And you know what? I remember the time before we even started our episode. You were so nervous about starting as a very first time host. And it turns out you were better than you would expect. And for that, I'm super proud of you. And yes, it's been such a journey. Ang dami nating mga na-touch na mga tao. Ang daming mga na-inspire. And of course, madami tayong natutunan. So once again, welcome back to POLeisipan Career Path Podcast Series, the podcast that teaches you all things that our political science has for you and how this discipline caters to a career path that you would like. And whether it be law, the academe, international relations, or public administration, it's important to remember that political science is not just about politics per se. It has its own practice of training, direction, and of course its own branch of knowledge, which is also interdisciplinary in nature.
Ange, it's truly fascinating that we get to explore. We have the opportunity to even dig deeper into one of the previously mentioned fields, in particular international relations.
That's right, partner. And tackling our last topic here in POLeisipan makes me a tad bit sad. Pero you know what? Ang saya isipin na pwede pa rin natin balik-balikan. And that's the beauty of it. Kasi even if mag-second year na tayo, we never know. May mga freshies pa rin tayong mga matutulungan throughout the years thanks to our podcast.
Yes naman, Ange, I mean, that's really the beauty of it. And I as well will cherish this podcast forever. Pero syempre, I said a while ago that we'd end things with a bang. And why not end things with a bang? By starting off our very last episode with a little trivia. Ready ka na ba?
Yes, ready na ako dyan, partner.
So, partner, for our very first question, how many UN dedicated organizations are there inside the campus? Is it A, 2, B, 4, C, 7, or D, 3?
You know what, partner? I think I'm going to trust my gut on letter A.
And the correct answer is, virtual drum roll please, it's A. Galing naman ng partner ko. So, to give that a little bit, syempre,
I don't go out like this, partner, no, without any sense of knowledge. Baka naman.
So, to give a little context, partner, bakit nga pala 2? Kasi, did you know that the university currently has, yun nga, 2 dedicated organizations related to the United Nations? These are the UST Volunteers for UNICEF and the UST UNESCO Club. Pero not only that, no, there are other international organizations inside the university such as ISEC, Red Cross, and Rotaract. Shoutout nga po pala dyan sa friend kong taga-ISEC, kay Topi.
All right, thank you so much, partner, for that wonderful trivia. And actually, for me, I also got a question for you as well. So for question number 2, who is the first and only Filipino president of the United Nations General Assembly? For letter A, Jose W. Jokno, and letter B, Jovito Salonga, and letter C, Carlos P. Romulo, and letter D, Salvador P. Lopez.
Like the question because it's very historical. I'll cross out A and B, and I'm not sure who D is, so I'll go with C, Carlos P. Romulo.
Actually, partner, ang galing mo dyan because you are totally right about that. Kaya did you know, partner, that the Philippines is one of the original 51 charter members that created the United Nations in 1945, and Carlos P. Romulo became the 4th president of the UN General Assembly in 1949, 4 years after the Second World War.
Alam mo, Ange, it's sad. It's bittersweet that was our last question and answer, or that was our last trivia segment for this 4-episode podcast. But alam mo, syempre, this is the pièce de résistance. We are here today in our last episode to discuss what international relations is in general, as well as why and how it became an ideal track and common pick among political science majors. So, Ange, for the past 3 episodes, I've been introducing our guests. For this last one, but not the least, would you please welcome our guest for today?
It would be my honor, partner. So today on our episode, we are joined by our speaker who is currently a Defense Research Officer too at the National Defense College of the Philippines, or NDCP, for the past 7 years and up to present. And he is also an instructor in the Department of Political Science of the University of Santo Tomas. He obtained his Bachelor of Arts degree major in Political Science from the University of Santo Tomas and graduated from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, with a Master in International Studies. As a successful researcher, his research interests include the international relations of the Asia-Pacific, territorial and maritime disputes, and the Philippine foreign and security policies.
Let us all now welcome a distinguished alumnus of the Department of Political Science, Mr. Mico A. Galang, MIS. Good day and welcome, Sir Mico. It is such a pleasure po to have you here as our guest speaker for our last episode, and in accordance with how international relations could potentially be a career path for political science majors.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you, Sir Mico, for accepting our invitation. It is truly an honor po to have you here as our guest in our very last episode of Career Path podcast series. And actually po, I have been continuously talking about international relations as a profession din po. And my question is, as an alumnus po, no, you are aware that the political science program in USC are not only based on the national curriculum implemented in the country, but it is also aligned with the international standards and enables students to be globally competitive in the near future. So therefore po, as a product of this program, I would like to ask you how political science has helped you in your current profession as a researcher and at the same time as a lecturer.
That's an interesting question. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I discussed a very similar question with senior political science students during their seminar. The question you raised is something similar to what Dr. Farid Zakaria, whom you may also be familiar as a CNN host and a host of his own podcast, in his book entitled In Defense of a Liberal Education. Now, in that book, Dr. Zakaria asked, what is the earthly use of a liberal education? Now, political science, as you know, is part of the liberal arts. And according to that book, the liberal arts teaches us three skills that are useful for most professions. The first is political science, and as I said, liberal education more generally, teaches us how to write. Yes, as Zakaria pointed out, a liberal arts degree teaches us how to think. But for Zakaria, thinking and writing are inextricably intertwined. When we begin to write, we are usually in a scenario where we realize that our thoughts are at first usually a collection of half-baked ideas, no? With logical inconsistencies. By writing, we are forced to straighten out what our thoughts really are and make them more coherent. In other words, writing brings clarity to our ideas. This is the reason why our political science program here at UST places premium on writing papers as a key requirement for its courses. Now, as a researcher, the skill of writing is at the heart of what I do. We at the National Defense College of the Philippines, our primary client is the Department of National Defense. As such, we need to make sure that the things we write, both those which are published and those which are unpublished, can be clearly understood by making sure that our ideas are coherent. After all, as I've said, our primary client is the DND, and the DND is among the agencies which are, policymakers, decision makers. Second, the liberal education teaches us how to speak. The liberal arts encourages us to speak our mind, freed from dogma. This does not mean, however, that we should spout anything that crosses our minds. Rather, the liberal arts teaches us or helps us understand our own mind, filtering out half-baked ideas and express our thoughts to others. The Socratic method of education, which is another hallmark of our political science program here at UST, is aimed to do just that. Class reports, thesis defense also serve that purpose. In my career as a researcher in government, there are many instances where you will be asked to speak in public, either as an MC or to facilitate a discussion such as this one, or present your papers and answers questions from the audience, especially when you present your own research paper in an academic conference. The third is that the liberal arts teaches us how to learn. After you graduate, you will realize that some of the things that you learn in college may prove to be immediately or at least subsequently irrelevant. What would not be irrelevant is how you learn, such as examining books, articles, search for sources, look for data to prove or disprove hypotheses, identify the biases of authors. As part of this learning process, the liberal arts teaches us how to ask questions and present opposing views. Again, as a researcher, this skill will be very useful as we seek greater understanding and, if possible, provide recommendations to the security challenges that our country faces.
Thank you so much, Sir Mico. And actually, whenever I think about international relations, I think that the very aspect of it is that you have to be really open about the world. You really have to be open-minded because the world continuously rapidly changes, and I think that is one of the beautiful parts of international relations po. Kaya again, thank you so much.
Thank you again for that wonderful insight, sir. And with that po, I would like to ask as well, what do you think are the comparisons between the courses, or let's say between the schools of political science and international relations? Since nga po, you have mentioned that the three, if I may say, pillars or necessities of the liberal arts, you said that it teaches us how to write, how to speak. And what are the key differences or the core competencies of each school, and how do they differ or how do they correlate with each other?
Yeah, I think in relation to your question, for us at least at UST, international relations is one of the major subfields of political science. Indeed, many universities, colleges, international relations courses are taught in political science programs. And currently, I am teaching Introduction to International Relations to third-year political science students, and previously Philippine Foreign Relations. But in other institutions, both here in the Philippines and abroad, there is a separate international studies, international relations department, separate from the political science program. They offer Bachelor's of Arts in International Studies or Bachelor of Arts in Foreign Service, which is, again, as I've said, different from a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science program. Now, going back to your second question of the core competencies, I think it's the same. No? About teaching us how to write, how to speak, and how to learn. So I think these are three important skills, competencies that will be very useful if you pursue a career in international relations.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Parang it's like ano din po, no? It's like hitting two birds with one stone with the curriculum that we have here. Instead of yun nga po, you mentioned that in other schools outside the Philippines, the international relations and the political science faculties are separate. But here, it's nice that we get to amalgamate or we get to correlate both into one curriculum wherein we apply what we learn from the political science and we apply it as well to the international relations and vice versa. So thank you very much for that, sir.
Actually, I myself po have been looking into this path, and actually I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to ask you po that is there really a wide range of opportunities in international relations, and ano po ba yung mga possible professions in pursuing this path?
Thank you very much, Angie, for that question. I think regarding your question on possible professions, I think the most obvious answer will be to join the Foreign Service and become a career diplomat. You will have to take and pass this rather rigorous Foreign Service officer examination, which is 5 steps. And then if you pass that, you'll have the opportunity to be assigned as the Department of Foreign Affairs Home Office located in Pasay, and to our embassies, consulates, and missions abroad. But what I would like to emphasize for this afternoon is that careers in international relations is not limited to the Department of Foreign Affairs. You can have IR-related careers in other government institutions, such as the Department of National Defense and its bureaus, where I work, and the Department of Trade and Industry. For instance, in the Department of National Defense, if you become a commissioned officer, be it in the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force, you have the chance of also being posted abroad. Usually with the rank of colonel, or in the case of the United States, a 1-star general. You could be posted as what we officially call as the Defense and Armed Forces Attaché. And the DAFAS, as we call them, they manage our defense and security relations with that particular country. Also, if you're a soldier, you have the chance of being part of the peacekeeping missions, also stationed abroad. And in the case of the Department of Trade and Industry, in many of our embassies, consulates abroad, we have trade attachés. They also need to undergo a rather rigorous examination to be posted abroad. So there are many others in the government apart from the Department of Foreign Affairs. Others would include, of course, the National Security Council and so on. In the academia, you could specialize in international relations and become a professor or as a researcher. In journalism, you could also focus on IR issues. There are many journalists who are covering mostly, if not all, international relations issues. You can also find careers in intergovernmental organizations such as the United Nations, ASEAN, the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, the ADB, Asian Development Bank, if you're a medical professional in the World Health Organization, to name a few. In the NGO world, there are also other careers for you, such as the International Committee of the Red Cross, Amnesty International, Greenpeace, and so on. So yes, there are numerous careers in IR, both inside and outside government.
Thank you, sir. I think that it really is interesting po, no, that there really is quite almost a limitless amount of possibilities in international relations. And for my next follow-up question po, I think that this would really connect with it. That is connections really important. It's actually important in any field, but in international relations, is it true po that having connections is almost mandatory? And if you have connections, will it make it easier to build a future in international relations? And if not po, how hard do you have to work in order to build that perfect resume? And does it pay off?
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is a bit more nuanced, rather than clear-cut. In some cases, yes. For instance, the heads of governments, to be clear, not just in the Philippines, but also in other countries, appoint non-career individuals as ambassadors, some of whom, admittedly, were chosen as rewards for helping them win in the election. So, in that sense, connections play a part, as you said. No? But in other cases, no. You need to work hard in order to gain the knowledge and display your talents in whatever IR-related career you wish to embark on. Universities, for example, are not going to hire you as a professor or as a researcher because you are the son or the daughter of this or that politician. They will look for your credentials, your experience, your publications, and your competency in general. You need to prove that your resume, as you pointed out, is not just impressive on paper, but more importantly, truthful. Because it's important that you're not just good in paper, but also good in practice.
Agreed. Thank you so much, sir.
Very much, sir. And for our follow-up po, syempre we've all had that, I guess, that thought in our minds, whether we were young or we were still studying, that we wanted to be, I would say, the big man on campus, or let's say join the government. And as an international studies practitioner, have you ever considered entering politics, or have you ever thought of being the next Carlos P. Romulo of the United Nations?
If you mean electoral politics, such as running for elections, no, I have not considered that. But I am in government. The National Defense College of the Philippines, as I've said, is a bureau under the Department of National Defense. So I am a career civil servant. Again, if you're referring to electoral politics, no.
Thank you, sir. And for this next one naman po, actually, it's really another important question po. What influenced your decision po to pursue a career in international relations over other tracks?
Well, there are two things, actually. First, I felt the need to develop my own niche. When I was in college, when I was a student like you at UST, most political science students, not just in our batch, but the higher and lower batches, I'm not sure if this is still the case now, would like to focus on areas such as public administration, Philippine politics, local government, and so on. So at the time, I would like to focus on areas that is less explored and somehow develop my own niche. But more importantly, I think it is because my interest in the field. I was very fascinated with how states interact with each other, the questions and indeed the history of war and peace. IR allows you to focus on the bigger picture, or the larger scheme of things, if I can put it that way.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. And for our next question po, we were tackling a while ago, or we were having a discussion a while ago in our trivia segment, that UST has two United Nations affiliated orgs. And siguro this is for those who are wishing to enter those orgs, or probably who are thinking about joining any international related orgs within the university. Is it important po to join UN related organizations or even international conferences in order to build career prospects in international relations?
Although it is not an absolute necessity, I think it would help. I hope I could have joined a UN organization or participated in a model UN when I was in college. But I think if you're asking the preparations for it, What I think would help more would be, just like in other subfields of political science, is read, read, and read. You need to abreast yourselves of not just of the theories or the frameworks, but also of the current developments. I mean, we have a lot of sources of information now. Um, it's online, newspapers, television. So you need to abreast yourselves of the current developments in international affairs, as well as listening to documentaries. There are a lot of podcasts related to IR, some of which would be The Diplomat, and as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Farid Zakaria, Global Public Square, the IISS based in London, the CSIS based in Washington. So there are many podcasts out there that could help you make sense of what is happening in the world.
Thank you so, Sir Mico. And for this one naman po, it is actually a hypothetical question po, no? And if you are given po the opportunity to serve as an ambassador of the Philippines in another country, and you have the freedom po to choose your place of designation, ano po yung pipiliin niyo?
I would say Japan. I think Japan is a country that is not that covered in the news, at least in our media, especially television media. But I think it is important to underscore the important relationship that we have with Japan. Next to the United States, I think Japan is one of the most important security partners and development partners that we have. So I think if I would be given the chance not to become an ambassador and choose the country of where I could be posted, I think I would pick Japan, because I think it's a very important bilateral relationship, especially now as we confront an increasingly assertive China, and we have the strategic interests between the Philippines and Japan. There is a clear convergence of interests as far as confronting the geopolitical challenges that we face today.
So ayun, thank you very much again, sir. And whenever I want to be reminded of how Philippine-Japanese relations are going, all I have to do is look at the infrastructure projects, the overpasses, the underpasses, the LRT, the MRT. There's always a bronze plaque hanging with the Philippine flag on the left and the Japanese flag on the right. And it says Philippine-Japanese relations, a project by this company and this company, and then a translation in Japanese. And we see especially not just the economic, but the friendship ties between the Philippines and Japan, how it bloomed throughout history, especially from the late 20th to the early 21st century. And especially with regards to the South China Sea dispute, though I guess, yes, we are in Southeast Asia, and practically the nearest quote-unquote line of defense would be the US. But we see how Japan is especially acting now. I've been hearing on the news that Japanese forces or Japanese naval forces have been regularly patrolling the South China Sea in favor of the Philippines. And I think it's really nice to see how our relationship with Japan was once from an invasive country to now something more like brothers or something more like a family. And I think that's a really nice observation po and answer to that, sir.
Yeah, if I may just add to that, I think it is also important to underscore that Japan is one of the three formal strategic or comprehensive partners that we have. Of course, the US, it's a separate category in itself. It's our sole treaty ally. And Japan is a strategic partner together with Vietnam and Australia. So I think it is important to cultivate that relationship as we traverse this geopolitical environment that is underpinned by major power competition.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. And For our last question po, what would you advise a political science student who would wish to enter the field of international relations after completing the political science program?
Yeah. First, for those who are interested, I would really strongly encourage you to choose a career related in international relations, because I think, especially now, as I've said, we are in the midst of a major power competition. Despite or in spite of the ongoing pandemic, we need strategic thinkers who could provide ideas, recommendations to our policymakers, because that is very much needed. And I may have not mentioned this earlier, but the international relations community in the Philippines is rather small, so we need more people, to contribute to the discussions of strategic issues. And secondly, for those wishing to do so, continuously abreast yourselves with what is happening. Yes, you go back to the reading materials that were provided to you in college, but just like in other subfields of political science, continue to read, and read, so you will have an edge regarding international affairs.
Thank you so much, Sir Mico. And actually, we're going to move forward now to welcome our student reactors naman po. If you may please introduce them to us, partner.
Got you there, Ange. Now, we would like to introduce Miss Eileen Mendoza and Mr. Denzel Jude Caro, both from Tupol 1, to hear their insights and takeaways on Sir Mico Galang's talk.
Hello, Sir Mico. I'm very thankful po to have the opportunity to listen to you in your podcast today. I would just like to share, I was mainly interested in international relations and international studies because of my interest in learning about other countries. Their languages, their culture had taken up a lot of my interest, especially the European countries, particularly Spain and France. I'm in love with their language and their culture, and I would love to learn more about them. However, it had not occurred to me that international relations in itself is a complicated field and covers a lot of career paths. And today's talk really helped me broaden my perspectives on whether or not will I be taking up a career in international relations. And it made me look forward to taking it up as a subject as well when I reach my third year in political science. That's all po. Thank you.
Thank you for the podcast. I think it was great. I always loved reading and talking about international relations, from issues in different forms of party systems and state alliances around the world, geopolitical conflicts like the Nagorno-Karabakh in the Middle East, and current development in various international institutions. However, I was always lost in where I can cross-apply everything I've read from The Economist or the CFR in the real life. So I think this podcast helped me to guide me in how I am able to cross-apply my readings in future contexts like job descriptions and career path that I can take up, since currently I'm still confused whether this is an interest that would help me develop as a person. So I think this podcast was really great in helping me and in guiding me in that aspect of my life. Thank you.
All right, so thank you to both Miss Eileen Nicole Mendoza and Mr. Denzel Jude Caro for the superb realizations towards our discussion in this episode. And again, thank you po Mr. Mico A. Galang for doing the honor to end this Career Path podcast series by your brilliant insights po. And of course, bago po natin tapusin ang kahuli-hulihang episode na ito, we would like to ask if there is any additional advice po or anything that you want to share with us.
Right. Since I am the last guest for this podcast, I think what I would just like to say to all political science students: continuously, study hard so that you can earn that degree. And remember this: if there's one thing that you would realize after you graduate and you entered in whatever career path you've taken, you will realize that the voluminous readings, the rigorous recitations that you've undertaken while you were students, they are very, very important in helping you, in molding you as a person, but also preparing you to the realities of the workplace. So good luck, and I wish all of you the best.
Thank you, Sir Mico po.
Thank you very much, sir. Ayun, so grabe, Ange. That was one really nice way to end our episode and our season. And siguro, a few takeaways or my understanding of Sir Mico's discussion and our discourse a while ago on international relations. If I may put it to a personal level, because when I was a kid, I really loved, I guess, learning about countries. I remember when I was still small, I had this big map inside my room. And then my parents would point, okay, so what's this country now? I'd say, oh, that's, ganito, that's ganyan. And as I progressed, from elementary, junior high school, and senior high school, and now that we're in college in political science, I still look back at those days wherein I continue to appreciate how the world works, how the Philippines, or how we're, I guess, blessed strategically, and especially when you look at the map, kasi there's a big clump of land on your left, and then there's us. So I guess that we may pale into comparison regarding, let's say, geographical tendencies or whatnot. But when we see our position, when we see where we are in the world map or in the world, we see how we're surrounded by this large body of water. We are interconnected, connecting to I guess economics and trade before, and how it also shaped international relations as we see it today. Because whenever we hear international relations, I think if we ask any random Filipino, we ask them, ano po yung palagay ninyo with regards to international relations? They would say, West Philippine Sea yan. Or probably, si Digong yan, jet skiing to the Spratlys. And we see a picture how very narrow our opinion is and how very small our understanding of international relations is. And I think that's what we need to cultivate then as a nation and as a country. It's our it's our willingness to open ourselves up to the experiences of international relations. It's to widen our view on certain geopolitical problems that occur inside and outside our country. It's to see how we're connected to the rest of the world. Just how our islands, 7,000 plus and all of them, are connected by one single identity as a Filipino. And siguro to close my conclusion, this talk has somehow, I want to pursue law, but at the same time, I also want to pursue diplomacy. So I guess I could say that this is a catalyst. We'll see wherever we are in 4 years' time, but I think it's nice to put into consideration as well that I would love to learn Philippine law, but at the same time, I would also love to learn the law of the world and how these laws, though different and probably individualistic or regionalistic in nature, how they can all come inside or come along into this general term of international relations. So that's mine. I'm very sorry. It might have been a little too academic.
Well, that's okay, partner. You know what? We never know what the future holds. Kaya, we'll see in 4 years. So for me naman, from what I learned, Jeho, we are all part of international relations because of our identities, religion, cultural backgrounds, places where we live, and the choices that we make. And even if we are not interested in international relations, I think that international relations is interested in us, Kasi syempre, modern international relations give us a very deep cultural understanding that is basically the foundation for interaction with cultures with different values and beliefs. And we, as well as other countries, need to communicate to survive. And all nations, of course, depend on trade and exchanges with others. that can be beneficial in many ways. And with our today's world, it is, of course, it is, like I mentioned earlier, it is rapidly changing. As new countries are becoming more powerful and significant on the international stage, the developing world grows. And as a result, I think that the global scene is more fluid than ever before in human history, because all of these changes to come are starting to have a profound impact in foreign relations in the decades to come. And I think that's what makes international relations so inspiring and intriguing, not to mention important in today. So the field of international relations, naman, is becoming more and more relevant in society, because effective communication between countries is a key for making beneficial relationships and ensuring basically a safer world, diba? And in short, international relations are all about power and weakness, war and peace, conflicts and cooperation. And put simply, understanding these behavior patterns is basically the only way to change them. And honestly, there is so much for us to change. So finally, I think that for us to develop an interest in international relations, I think that one must be aware and have basically a basic understanding of what is going on in the world, because only this will enable us to pay attention and to link events appropriately to justify what you are working on. I guess that's what concludes my conclusion.
Sadly, Ange, it's such a bummer, but that wraps up our fourth episode in the POLeisipan Career Path podcast series. And to all our listeners out there, I hope this podcast has given you new insight and opened your eyes to the different professional paths you could pursue once you finish your political science degree in the field of international relations. And not only that, but I also believe our speaker was able to clearly address all of our questions that you have all been anticipating. We hope that this would be useful not only to our graduating political science students, but also to the undergraduates who intend to pursue international relations as a career in the near future.
So once again po, thank you po Sir Mico and the students for sharing your insights, and to our dear listeners for having the time to listen to our fourth but sad last episode in this series. But we never know what the future holds, kaya this isn't the very end.
I agree, partner. And of course, we would like to plug again our social media accounts. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify. Also, if you haven't followed and liked our social media accounts at UST-TPSF on Facebook and at UST_TPSF on Instagram and Twitter, make sure to do so.
That's right. And before we formally conclude this podcast, we would like to thank the people behind this amazing program. For his closing remarks, we would like to call our beloved Mr. Maurice Jeb Agustin, the Office of the Vice President.
Thank you, Anj and Jeho. So, first and foremost, I want to thank everyone in the Political Science Forum, which is headed by Kuya Apoy, Mr. Paul Derek Olorga, and our department chair, Sir Doc Dennis Coronacion. Thank you for supporting our project. The OVP team, Antea, my partner and the writer of the Public Administration episode, Verson, the writer of Academe, Gia for the Law episode, and lastly, Shana and Joseph are freshies for this episode. And maliban dun sa paggawa ng scripts and such, kayo rin yung nakasama ko sa pag-aasikaso ng papeles for this project. Our host, Angie and Jeho, na bigla ko nilang niyaya, pero nag-agree sila, wala nang pero-pero. And ayun, sinamahan tayo for the whole month sa lahat ng episodes. Sa Acads and Lodge, si Kuya Francis, si Kuya Jeyo, si Ate Michelle, and si Joris. Thank you so much sa effort kahit na meron kayong project ngayon, and I wish you good luck din sa projects nyo ngayon. To that someone na sinuportan ako at yung project nung idea pa lang siya, nung binubuo ko pa lang siya before pa ako maging VP. Parang nung vacation pa lang iniisip ko na tong project na to. So kung paano ko siya tutuparin. And thank you kung sinamahan mo ako nun, and I hope you're doing well. And lastly, sa ating mga speakers, si Kuya Kiko from episode 1. Thank you. Sir Marvin from episode 2. Si Judge Rigor from the last episode. And of course po kay Sir Mico, thank you po. You guys are the soul of our podcast. And this won't be possible without you guys po. Thank you. And I just want to share sa lahat yung inspiration ko sa podcast na to. And kaya ako naisip tong project na to kasi personally, hindi ko rin alam kung ano yung tatahakin ko after college. Hindi ako sure. Siguro natatakot din ako na what if after college maging corporate slave din ako or nakaupo lang ako sa lamesa, nagtatype, ganun. And pero na rin habang iniisip ko to, parang kasi syempre lito ako, so kailangan merong sagot. And iniisip ko kung ano yung pwedeng ipa-project kung sakaling maging class officers ako. And yung guidance kasi, meron na siyang existing career path seminars. So, ang repetitive kung gagayahin ko, di ba? So, but what if gawin nating podcast? Kasi, at least yun, accessible, pwedeng ulit-ulitin and pwede siyang i-play sa background. Ayun. So, kung napansin nyo sa mga past episodes na mahaba nga naman talaga yung episodes, mga 1 hour, and that's not DK mostly, lahat hindi siya capable sa i-take yun ng attention span nila. Pero yung goal naman natin dito is to not to make you listen the whole hour of podcast attentively. Ang gusto lang namin na mangyari is through this podcast, maybe a certain line from an episode will make a pinch in your heart na yes, na-inspire ako sa sinabi ni speaker, parang gusto ko na siyang i-pursue. So, throughout the podcast, syempre, isang buwan na tayo magkakasama and marami na rin ako natutunan sa iba't ibang field. And sa tingin ko, sa ngayon, sure na ako sa tatakin ko sa future. Kahit na natatakot na ako kasi kung paano ko siya i-execute sa mga near future. Pero ayun, and maliban sa amin, na na-enlighten na rin, I hope you guys too. So, ang goal lang naman namin is if someone has already made up their mind, or na-feel nila na ginagabayan sila after listening this podcast, yes, I think nagawa na namin yung purpose namin, yung main goal ng podcast namin. So, ayun. Thank you everyone. And to my friends, to my kakilalas, to everyone who listens and promotes to our podcast. We hope that you don't experience any POLeisipan anymore to your minds, and we hope we enlighten you. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po to all our listeners, to all the people who have joined us, and siguro on behalf of my co-host, I would like to thank everyone for supporting again our short but sweet podcast, and we hope that somehow we've been able to help you found or let's say build foundations for whatever you wish to be in the future. And again, we hope we've untangled yet another POLeisipan in your head, and whatever career path you choose, whether in the field of public administration, the academe, law, or even international relations, we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Padayon lang.
Padayon. And for the last time, I am Angeline Pauline Cabral, your Audrey Hepburn, signing off. And always remember, nothing is impossible. The word itself says impossible.
I am Jeho Kaluma, the Cary Grant to my absolutely wonderful host for 4 episodes, signing off with I pretend to be somebody I wanted to be until I finally became that person, or he became me.
So again, till next time, Spartans, we will see you very soon.
Again, partner, shall we end this podcast series together?
Yes. So this is POLeisipan Career Path podcast series.
Now, signing off.